I'm Rob, and welcome to Rob's Food Passion. Today I get to do something kind of special to me, and in fact I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. This is my mom's cookbook, and as you can see from the broken binder and the dirty pages, it is a family friend. My mom wrote this years ago, and I'm grateful that she did. I don't always follow her recipes exactly, but I'm grateful that she left me with a passion for food. She wrote the cookbook because she loved food, and food in our home was love, and that's how I got here. My mom loved me a great deal. Today I get to make her Texas sheet cake. We have some friends coming over. It's one of their birthdays. I'm going to make her a Texas sheet cake. Not your standard birthday cake. It's not going to be pretty. I don't do pretty. As we go through this process together, guys, one of the things you will absolutely see, without question, is that my food isn't always gorgeous. It always tastes good. It isn't always gorgeous. In fact, there may not be anything quite as less beautiful, I guess, than my enchiladas, but doggone, they are world famous and they are fantastic. So they don't look great, but they taste great. So this is a pretty quick and easy recipe. A couple things in the book. I do have the book out because I want to make sure I had everything out. A couple things I change about the recipe, and I'll go through those with you real quick too. So to get started, we'll kind of go from there, okay? It'll be easy when we get there. First thing we do is take 2 cups of flour and 2 cups of white sugar, put them in a bowl together. Real tough, right? Then we have a half a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda. And that's all the leavening in this one. So, if you were with us for the brownie episode, you will know that I used my KitchenAid, but I put that away and gone to the hand whisk, not only to prove I can, but quite frankly, because for this recipe, so quick and easy. My mom, for some unknown reason, people just thought that this cake was, it is great, don't get me wrong, but that it was, you know, some huge amount of work or something. But having made it a few times in my life, it really isn't. So, hard part's done. That way, next thing we do is we're going to get this pan, and I'm going to turn my heat on, and I'm going to turn it to high to start, and I'm going to turn it down when everything hits it, but I want to get the heat kind of going. We're going to take a cup of water, good old-fashioned American out of the tap H2O, and a half a cup of buttermilk. Now, Mom says in here I use dehydrated, although that must be something from a time that I don't remember because I've never seen dehydrated buttermilk. Don't have a clue what it is. So I use buttermilk, and I use whole cultured buttermilk. I guess you could use fat-free if you're really excited about it, but with everything else that goes in this cake, fat-free seems a bit useless. So here is the big change from my mom's recipe to my recipe. Mom believes in margarine. I do not. Now, the problem is that margarine did something texturally for this cake that was very hard to duplicate, and it took me a little bit. If you add just butter, it's a little dry. If you add just shortening, it's a little greasy. If you add like part margarine and part butter, I don't know why you're doing that, because it's kind of killing the butter when the margarine's there. The margarine's just, I am viscerally opposed to margarine. So I use a mix of half butter and half shortening, and it's a half a cup of each. So it calls for 2 cubes or 1 cup. So this is a half a cup of shortening and a half a cup of butter. And all that goes right in that pan. Now, get the last of the butter off of that. Wash my hands, they're clean. I'm going to put that back on the heat, and I'm going to watch that pretty carefully. In fact, I'm going to grab what must be in the dishwasher. So we'll go with this. I'm just going to grab a wooden spoon, but I'll just go with this little plastic guy. And the last thing you want to have happen here is to have this cocoa burn. So I'm going to just kind of watch it, make sure that the butter and the shortening melt and do their thing. Sometimes I do this in a little, like a saute pan. It goes a little quicker. But in this case, I had this little pan. It was clean. It was on the counter. It's the one that got chosen. So once that comes to heat and boils, you're supposed, Mom's recipe says to cook it together until it's bubbly. If it melts and it's smooth, I'm done. Because after that, you got to add 2 eggs to it. So if it's too hot, the last thing I want to do is have 2 eggs, hit that, and curdle or scramble, or, you know, nobody likes scrambled eggs in their cake. At least the last time I checked, that wasn't part of any good recipe I knew of. Now, again, another throwback from the brownie episode we did is my bottle of vanilla. If you didn't see the brownie episode again, I'm going to tell you about the vanilla. It is special. It is different. It is not store-bought. I make my own vanilla. Try and make everything I can, as much as I can, by myself. So this vanilla is nothing more than a nice big bottle of vodka, and I go get vanilla beans. I get them from a place called Beanilla.com. It's a great little website. They sell spices and some other things. Split the vanilla beans, take the seeds, put everything, vanilla bean pods, everything right in the bottle. After about 6 weeks to 8 weeks, you got vanilla, and the longer it sits, the more vanilla it becomes. You want to get adventurous? Try it with bourbon. You could try it with rum. You could add a little cinnamon. You can do lots of fun things. That the vodka, the alcohol breaks down and lets the flavors come out. So I'm a big fan of getting as close to the essence of what it is as I can, and I love making my own when I can. I make my own apple cider vinegar. It is amazing. And when we do potato salad, I'll show you, and it is a big hit. My son Kai, who is 18, is a aficionado of potato salad. Says it's the best he's ever had. There's just something about it. But being able to put your hands on it, know where it came from, know that it doesn't have anything else in it. You know, especially artificial vanilla flavor. Not going to hit one of my recipes. So, if you use artificial vanilla in this cake, you know, you could be banned. We could find out and ban you from the website and from the videos. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. We want to keep you watching these and getting good recipes and kind of seeing what I've become passionate about in my life, so I can share that with you. And one of the things I'm passionate about is staying away from as much artificial stuff as I can. I read the story, that's how I got it off of margarine. I read that it was actually created to be something entirely different, not food related. No, they created it to fatten up cattle, and then they figured out that cattle wouldn't even eat it. So, if cattle aren't going to eat it, perhaps I don't want to put it in my face either. And I'll put a lot of stuff in my face, I promise you. But, alright, so we're going to keep checking this and melting it down, and it's going to take a couple minutes. So, as soon as it's done, we'll hit the pan with that. Now I have preheated my oven to 400 degrees. That's another little difference with this cake. You know, it's funny, for some unknown reason, the manufacturers of stoves must have put out that 350 degrees is the optimum temperature for everything, because what doesn't bake at 350 degrees? I mean, almost everything. Your Thanksgiving turkey, if you bake it, I fry mine. We'll do that on camera too, by the way. Bread, cakes, you know, you turn on your oven, it almost presets to 350. In this case, we go to 400. Never was sure why, but Mom said so, and that was good enough for me, and that big a temperature change wasn't really that big a deal. So, butter and shortening are starting to melt, and they do have to melt completely to get into this recipe. So, I'm going to stand here and stir. Oh, now the other part about this recipe that I'll tell you about now is it's an interesting recipe. You get to put the frosting on the cake right as it comes out of the oven. So what's going to happen is I'm going to finish putting the cake in the oven, and then I'm going to go away for a little while. And when I come back, we're going to make frosting just about in time to pull the cake and then put the frosting on the cake. For some unknown reason, it seems to melt in there nicely. It doesn't seem to have a problem with tearing the cake. You know, there you go. One of my favorite comments in the entire book that my mom wrote here, and I read it as I was preparing for this, and it reminded me. It says, you know, there are many variations of this recipe, and there are. You know, Texas sheet cake is well known. Is this the only Texas sheet cake in the world? No, it's the one I make. So the funny part about it is she says some people put cinnamon in theirs. Yuck. And she actually wrote that right in the cookbook. So I think her opinion on cinnamon in a Texas sheet cake is somewhat negative. I would tell you mine is too. I haven't figured out yet why anybody combines cinnamon and chocolate. Having tried it, and again, not such a fan. Lots of things go well with chocolate. Yeah, I'm not such a fan of cinnamon and chocolate. So, all right, this is just about that little block of shortening. Just needs to give up the ghost and melt here. I wish you could smell it. It smells pretty good and chocolatey. Now I have gone ahead, as you probably can see over on the counter over there, and greased and floured a jelly roll pan. It's a cookie sheet. This recipe calls for that. I think the batter's thin enough that if you tried it in a 9x13 pan or a bunch of round pans, might not turn out, might stay wet in the middle, so we want to keep it thin with the liquidity of the batter, probably what's going on there. And I went in my cupboard to find my can of cooking spray and didn't have any, so I haven't bought any. And you know what, honestly, just a paper towel, and I put some oil down, some good old-fashioned canola oil, wiped it on there, a nice thin layer, and then I floured the pan. I've tried this the other way. I've tried the cooking spray with this and alone, and for some unknown reason, this one just doesn't do quite as well. You really do need that extra flour to keep this coming out. Be careful when you flour a pan. It's important that you really do give it a couple of good taps right there at the end so that you don't have clumps of flour, because who really wants cake with a big bite of flour in the bottom of a piece of cake? All right, we are just a few seconds having the last of that melted. I'm going to encourage it a bit here. Just about there. Now I noticed as I was watching the brownie video, because obviously I don't watch it while I'm doing it, it really cracked me up. We have a dog that's name's Boomer. He's a half German Shepherd, half Hound, and he was sneaking in on the bottom side of the screen there. I really thought that was funny. He's kind of just checking out what we're doing. He can't figure it out. So he knew I was cooking, which is Boomer's favorite thing that I do in the house. He loves it when I cook because he never knows when he's going to score just a little bit of something coming off the cutting board, or, you know. And I would tell you that he's a good taste tester, but he's not, because honestly, Boomer would eat anything. So good, bad, or indifferent, don't trust Boomer's advice on food. All right, so while it's warm, water, cocoa, and the shortening and butter, and the buttermilk, by the way, goes straight in. Set that right back over there on that surface, and we're going to use that pan again. So I don't even mess with it. I leave it right there because I have to heat up some things that go into the frosting, and I use that pan again. I don't believe in having to, make a mess and then clean it up and all the rest of them. I can just use that pan again. I'm going to clean one time if I can. So now, with this cake, Mom calls for 4 tablespoons of cocoa. I actually use 5. I like it a little darker. So, just to be sure we've got this all down, we have 2 cups of flour, 2 cups of sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and then we did 2 cubes of margarine, according to Mom. Don't do it. We did half a cup of shortening and a half a cup of butter, a cup of water, 5 tablespoons of cocoa, and a half a cup of buttermilk in that pan. So then, wet goes into dry. It gets mixed in, which kind of cools it off a little bit. 2 eggs, they get mixed in, nice and easy. And they're almost there. And then last but not least, the vanilla. I'll make sure I get everything incorporated. The trusty vanilla. So, it's about a teaspoon of vanilla. Guys, I'm not going to measure a teaspoon of vanilla. If I get a half a teaspoon extra, you're never going to tell. Quite frankly, the vanilla really does a lot to enhance the flavor. So, and that little tiny extra bit of liquid certainly will not affect the consistency that the batter is supposed to be. So, wow, it smells a lot more vanilla than anything I've ever had come out of the store. So, batter is smooth. You can see it is a very, very runny liquid batter. Kind of akin to pancake batter, even a little thinner, I think. So, we're going to drop the whisk, slide the pan over, and this whole thing goes right into my greased and floured pan. Now, once that all hits the pan, I often get begged to lick that bowl. And that I will let them do. Just going to make sure that the batter hits the corners like it's supposed to. Nothing worse than a lopsided cake. I'm just going to help it a little bit. See, it's kind of run over here. So just give it a little bit of a shake. Let it kind of settle for a second so that it doesn't pour all over the place. 400-degree oven. Mom's recipe calls for 20 to 25 minutes. That, in my world, means I'm going to set my oven on the low side of that. I'm going to turn on the timer for about 20 minutes, and I'm going to check it at 20. It may need a minute instead of 21, and watch, my clock always drops down one. So when I do that, you guys will be like, hey, he set that for 21 minutes. He's lying. No, no, no. I know my oven. I use it a lot. So we're going to come back here in about 20 minutes. I'm going to check the cake. If it's ready, great. If it's not, we're going to go a few more minutes. While we're waiting for it to finish up, we will make the frosting, have it done. It's very quick, it's very easy. We're going to use the dirty pan because it's already got cocoa in it, and we'll frost this thing up and have it ready. And then people will be here in about an hour, and we're going to have a little birthday party. So, appreciate you watching, and come right back, and we'll be right here and making frosting. Thanks. Okay, so we're back. As you can see by the timer, we have 3 minutes left on the cake. So it is now time to do the frosting. So in the pan I have a half a cup of butter. Like I said before, what came out of this pan was water, butter, cocoa, and buttermilk. And so what's going back in is butter, canned milk, and cocoa. So half a cup of butter, half a cup of canned milk, or 6 tablespoons, which it really does equal to. And Mom always called for 4 tablespoons of cocoa. I like just a little more. Again, I want to make it a little more chocolatey. My wife is a lover of dark chocolate. So this isn't really what I would call dark chocolate, but if you don't use a little extra cocoa, you end up with a really, really light milk chocolate. And if that's your thing, then 4 tablespoons. You like a little less, go with 3. Pretty easy, guys. So all we're going to do is melt this together. It melts together real quickly. Butter's got to melt. Milk will incorporate. It'll become a nice little mass. Don't walk away from it. Walking away from it at this point is a bad idea, especially if it's on high. No, I'm not. I'm on about 6.5. All I'm really trying to do is melt it. If you walk away from this and are not stirring it pretty consistently, some really bad things can happen, namely burning. Cocoa has a real propensity to burn over any kind of heat, so the butter will protect it a little bit. So if you have an emergency, yeah, go deal with it. Slide it off the heat. You can get back to it and melt it later. So this comes together really, really easily, really quickly. I guess you actually could do this in the microwave too, so no problem there. I want to make sure it comes together and is soft and melty. I don't necessarily need it to bubble. There we go, nice and smooth. So, now, get this out of here into something that I can add powdered sugar into. And what the recipe calls for is 1 box of powdered sugar. Now, in my mother's world, a box of powdered sugar was £1. So, and it's funny because now I felt bad. The first time I went to make this, I whipped out the powdered sugar. It was in a bag. And I had to wonder if I was doing it right. So, it's just £1. Step over here and get it. £1 of powdered sugar. Dun, dun, dun. I'm going to add a little bit of it just to kind of make sure it does get incorporated well. Wow, don't lick that off your finger. Without any sugar, it is really bitter. So, get most of that incorporated in here, and then I'll add the rest and just mix it. Because again, we're going to frost this thing as it comes out of the oven. Only recipe I know to do that with. So, now, the other thing about this recipe is, trash is over there off camera, sorry. So, the other thing that about this recipe that is kind of fun, that my mom used to do for my dad and others up with us in the family, there were 6 of us. Actually 7 all told, but by the time the last one came around, the oldest was moved out. So there were 6 kids living in the house. and Mom and Dad. And so everybody had different tastes on things. Now, I'm going to pick this up and really go to work on it for a minute because that does get a little stiff right there at the end. Now, this stiffens up a little more than I want it to. No problem. That, you can lick off your finger. I'm just going to grab my can of the milk and I'm just going to dribble maybe a half a tablespoon in. See, I didn't add a bunch. Don't have to get crazy with it. But it'll soften it enough. There we go. That's the consistency I was looking for. So, Mom would take this recipe and she'd do this recipe of frosting and she'd half it. She'd put half of this out in one bowl and then she'd add some pecans to the rest of it. And so those who liked nuts in their cake frosting could have nuts in their cake frosting. And those of us who prefer it plain could have it plain. You can sprinkle nuts on top. You don't have to mix them in the frosting. I am, around here, we're not big on the nuts. The kids seem to like it just plain. Everybody else seems to like it just plain. But certainly nuts are doable. This is still just a little stiffer than I want it to be. And that could be because maybe I had an air pocket in my half-cup measuring cup when I measured my butter out. I don't use cubes of butter, I use a tub. So, there we go. That would be the importance of measuring in this kind of a thing, but you can always touch it up. Dadgum, that's good. All right, so I'm going to get me a spatula. Ta-da! And you heard the beeper go off, so I'm kind of working under a time constraint, unless I check, which I haven't yet, and I see the cake isn't done yet. And then things are going to loosen up quite a bit. So scrape this all off because trust me, you don't want to waste any of that at all. Vanilla's still out on the counter. I can add a little. At this point, I don't think I'm going to because it really does taste good. It's just fine as it is. There are occasions I think people add vanilla just because that's what somebody told them to once a long time ago. And sometimes it really does enhance. In this case, this is good frosting. And the cake is a good cake. So, don't need to touch anything up. Alright, so let's get our hot pads out. Oh, I've got these smiley faces. Cute, huh? And we're going to turn the oven light on because I want to see what I'm looking at. And we have one done Texas sheet cake. So, now I'm not in a raging hurry to get that on there because I mean literally if you put it on right this second it would tear. So I'm going to put this off the camera in the sink. You know, that's what I think sometimes the TV chefs have going on everybody else is they have their, you know, professional kitchens and their sinks are next to their stoves and, you know, it's all right there. I live in a house. I live here. I don't work here and then, you know, get to cook here and go home to another kitchen altogether. I don't get to cook in a restaurant all day. Although I have had the opportunity to cook in a restaurant, not professionally. A friend of mine owns a deli, Pelham Falls Deli in Greenville, South Carolina. We'll give them a free kick. And Brian and the boys down there, Rob and Brooks, used to have me come down on a Saturday morning and I got to cook in their commercial kitchen to make breakfast for them and some of the crew. Both of my older boys, Ron and Kai, worked for them at differing times, or together. And so I'd go down and make some breakfast for them and get to experiment a little bit and cook in a commercial kitchen with a commercial oven and a nice big gas cooktop. Oh my goodness, that was fun. And some people are saying, that sounds like a lot of work, and I get that, but you know what, if you have a passion for food, that's fun. It's like being a car guy and getting to go drive the Dale Earnhardt Experience, I think. So, I'm just real gentle with it, and you can see kind of what happens is the heat from the cake sort of softens up the frosting a little bit. And I'm not going to shove it around real hard because if you do, then, you know, you do, again, run that risk of tearing the cake. Trust me, torn cake, this cake, wouldn't even matter. You'd eat it anyway because it is fan-freaking-tastic. But you want it to at least be presentable when you put it in front of the birthday girl who's coming up today. I have her a little tiara to wear and some candles. Not 100% sure exactly how old she is. She's got to be either 21 or 22. And so I went with the standard happy birthday candles. They just say happy birthday. Makes it a lot easier. I don't have to guess. But that is one well frosted. The other thing is I don't know whether she's allergic to nuts or not, because if she's allergic to nuts or allergic to peanuts and you've got pecans on this thing, when the birthday girl doesn't get to have a piece of her own birthday cake, there's something wrong in the world. So, now many of you will remember my mom fondly who are watching this. I'm sure that I'll have posted this on Facebook and it'll be on YouTube, and some of my cousins will be watching this and remarking how little hair I have anymore. Shut up. And some of you will remember my mom and having eaten this at her house any number of times. It was one of my mom's favorites to make. My mom loved food. She loved people. Food, love, food, fat rob. You get the equation? So, that just needs to sit for a little while we eat lunch. And when lunch is over, that'll be ready to slice. If you want to let it settle just a little bit, want to let the surface of the frosting settle in, you go to cut it right now, you're going to have a big drippy chocolate mess. Not that it's not delicious, trust me. You take it this hot, put it in a bowl, put ice cream on it, your whole day is going to be better. It's just going to be a mess. That's okay. That's okay. Again, food doesn't always have to be beautiful to taste good. The fact that it's more appealing visually is fantastic. I get that. But trust me on this one, this is not the most beautiful chocolate cake anybody's ever made. It is not frosted professionally. I am not a cake decorator. There are people that do that professionally. They're artists. I think they're fantastic. Just not how I cook, okay? How I cook is how you cook. You may be a professional cake decorator. If you are, hey, look, fantastic cake. Easy, throw together, time's an issue, done. I've seen people spend hours on a beautiful wedding cake or a beautiful birthday cake. Knock yourself out. You're probably a better baker than I am. I don't call myself a baker, I call myself a cook. I don't even call myself a chef, just a cook. I love to cook, passionate about food, passionate about sharing what I know and what I've learned. So, take away with you today will be the vanilla. Guys, go get yourself some vodka or some bourbon or some rum or whatever you like. Add some vanilla beans and, boy, make your own vanilla. Try it. After about, I'm going to tell you, the longer the better. But I'll tell you, after 90 days, this stuff was fantastic. Started using it at about 6 weeks. At 8 weeks, it was better. At 90 days, fantastic. You open it, the whole room smells like vanilla. It's great. And it'll make a real difference in what you do. So, appreciate you taking the time to spend with me today. Enjoy yourself some Texas sheet cake. Make it for your family. Tell them you love them. Tell them you love them by making something delicious. And I'll see you when we're doing something else. There'll be a lot of recipes coming up, and no, I don't just bake good chocolate things. I'm going to make, we're going to do lasagna, we're going to do chicken soup, we're going to do some Mexican food, enchiladas, we're going to do Thanksgiving dinner, we're going to do our traditional Christmas morning breakfast. So lots and lots and lots of videos coming your way so that you can have the recipes that I grew up with and that I've changed a little bit to make them kind of mine. And I hope you enjoy them. And find us on the website, find us on Facebook, find us on YouTube, tag us, and keep watching. Thanks.